Hi there, John Wilkinson and History Made Easier. And this time 2 videos on Italy's involvement in World War II. And in this first video, the events and thinking behind the decision of Mussolini to take Italy into the war. Italy unprepared. In 1927, in a speech to the Chamber of Deputies, Mussolini had talked of Italy producing a war machine that could mobilise 5 million men, whose air force would drown out every other sound and blot out the sun. From 1936, he repeatedly talked about having 8 million bayonets at his disposal. But Mussolini wasn't acknowledging the reality. Often, training in the Italian army was shambolic. The men he did have trained, though they had good rifles and machine guns too, they didn't have enough of them, and so they also had to rely on pre-World War I rifles. They were short of artillery, and at least some of what they had was captured from the Austrians in 1918, and they were woefully short of tanks. Indeed, a powerful and serviceable tank was never produced. The Army's General Staff had not paid heed to the need for armoured vehicles, as their planning was mainly focused on a war fought in the Alps. But to put the state of affairs in full perspective, half the men in the Italian army didn't even have decent boots. Their air force was short on planes too. Their production capability so poor that America would end up producing more planes in a week than the Italians could in a year. What is more, their planes were of such poor quality that they were often a danger to themselves. And on the ground, Italy's cities were left without anything approaching adequate air defence systems, not even shelters. As for the Navy, the plan had been to build an escape fleet capable of breaking out of the Mediterranean, but it was never a realistic proposal. In fact, as its Navy had no air support of its own, it was often reluctant to leave port. Whilst we can clearly see a problem with its guns, or gunners, as not one shell fired from an Italian battleship hit its target in the entire war. Italy did have the second largest fleet of submarines, second to the Soviet Union, but they were so poorly designed that their engines leaked poisonous fumes. Italian mines and anti-submarine equipment were outdated too. And as Mussolini had assumed control of the Army, Navy and Air Force ministries in 1933, there was really no one more to blame than Mussolini. And as I have noted in my video piece that looked at Italy before World War II, Abyssinia and Spain had left Italy badly short of war materials and the ability to pay for more. And there was no way Italy could make good these shortfalls itself. Such was the poor state of Italy's industrial development, it was never going to be in a position to outproduce its enemies. Never mind that, when the war began for Italy, it had only stockpiled 6 weeks of fuel. The ideologically driven machine thought of war as a matter of will, rather than attention to detailed planning and preparation. Germany's ambassador in Rome was aware that Italy was not prepared to fight a war, noting in his diary in late May 1939 that Mussolini must know that Italy cannot fight a world war, either militarily, materially, or morally. But apparently he didn't. Fascist arrogance. Italy's aggressive foreign policy, again the responsibility of Mussolini as much as his son-in-law and foreign minister Ciano, paid no heed to Italy's ability to back it up with military clout, whilst at the same time they had a complete disregard for their foes, particularly the French, a hodgepodge of races and scum, a haven for cowards. And 30 million spineless and gutless people corrupted by alcohol and syphilis, Mussolini told his mistress on different occasions. Whereas with the British, and Chamberlain in particular, Mussolini was fixed on the notion that because they protected themselves from the rain with umbrellas, they were therefore weak and unprepared for war. Appeasement, climaxing at the Munich conference at which Mussolini thought he had played a leading part, convinced him that he was right. In April 1939, Italy invaded Albania, already mostly controlled by Italy anyway. The reason was most likely to reassert Mussolini's standing and to demonstrate Italy's independence from Hitler. Germany had already joined with Austria, and as well as taking the Sudetenland, had just marched into what remained of Czechoslovakia. Mussolini had to affirm Italy's own virility, always important to Italian fascists. But there was no Albanian army to face, and so it was an easy victory. So what to do? In May 1939, Mussolini instructed Ciano to conclude a formal alliance with Germany, the Pact of Steel, which committed Italy to join Germany in any war, be it defensive or aggressive. Hitler repeatedly assured Ciano that he had no plans to invade Poland in the immediate future. But as soon as the pact was concluded, that is what he ordered his generals to do. Mussolini himself had talked of using Albania as a springboard to attack Greece, Turkey, or Romania. When Hitler finally informed Mussolini of his plans on August the 25th, 1939, Hitler had been pressing for a meeting since the pact was signed. Mussolini sent Ciano back to Berlin to inform the Germans that Italy was not ready. It wanted a delay of 2 or 3 years. And when asked what he needed, Mussolini asked for an enormous quantity of raw materials and supplies. 6 million tons of coal, 2 million tons of steel, and 7 million tons of petrol. Enough to ensure Hitler would not call on Italy's help. So when Germany invaded Poland, Mussolini was faced with a critical decision. Italy was not prepared for war, and he could not be seen as taking Italy down the same route as Giolitti took it in the First World War. But Italian virility had to be proven on the battlefield. By now, many Italians were fearful and privately critical of Mussolini's policy of tying Italy to Nazi Germany. They didn't want Italy dragged into Hitler's war. Neither did they trust Hitler. There was a widely felt belief that Hitler could just as easily turn on Italy at some point and take Trieste and Trento. Added to this, in northern Italy, there was resentment that the long-established economic and cultural ties with France were being tossed aside in order to support German aggression. However, faith in Mussolini's ability to pull off another Munich and maintain the peace of Europe remained. Mussolini's faith in the Italian people, though, hit a new low. Where was the fascist man, disciplined and fearless, he had so wanted to create? In January 1940, he would describe Italians to Ciano as a race of sheep. Mussolini's decidedly awkward solution was made public in a speech to party leaders broadcast on September the 23rd. He declared Italy a non-belligerent power, but this could only be a temporary face-saving solution. He then presented two very different perspectives, one belligerent, the other pessimistic. At a meeting with Hitler, he had promised that Italy would enter the war as soon as he was sure that victory could be achieved quickly. Hardly a heroic stance. And he told the Council of Ministers that Italy must fight, that a nation that avoids the supreme test of its history is a nation of pigs. But he told his mistress, it's absolutely useless. You can't undo 3 centuries of slavery in 18 years. These Italians want their creature comforts, their coffee, their women, their theatres. He was clearly still in a dilemma. Italy, in danger of missing out, joins the war. When the German forces swept into France in the spring of 1940, it appeared as if Mussolini had, after all, backed the right side, and that the energy of fascism was going to smash the old but now decadent powers of France and Britain. But Italy was in danger of missing out on the glory as well as the spoils of victory. By the end of May, Mussolini told his military chiefs that he had decided to join the war, with himself as supreme commander. He told the Italian people on June the 10th in a speech from the balcony of the Palazzo Venezia that was broadcast across the nation, saying that Italy would break the chains that Britain and France had shackled them with. As a footnote to Mussolini's prevarications, it's interesting to note that whilst liberal Italy had kept out of World War I for 296 days, Mussolini's fascist Italy had kept out of World War II for 273 days. Not a great deal of difference. Some Italians were optimistic in 1940, more optimistic than they had been before Germany had swept through France. Paris fell on June the 14th, and some were excited, but overall the response was still muted. There were those who, having lost loved ones, had bitter memories of World War I, those that feared for their men, those that feared air raids. The war with France, for Italy, such as it was, did not go well for the Italians. The Italians didn't go on the offensive until Paris had fallen. They attacked the French in the Alps, but the French were well dug in, and the Italians were badly prepared. Very little gain was made by the time the armistice came into effect. Still, Mussolini had got his few thousand dead, which he thought would give him a place at the peace table. He also got casualties in Milan, Genoa and Turin, a consequence of British air raids. Never mind, in July, Ciano went to Berlin to press Italy's claims for Nice, Corsica, Malta. Large swathes of northern and central Africa were also hoped for. Hitler, however, wasn't interested. He still had a war to win. This didn't stop the fascist press, however, from bragging about Italy's pending empire, stretching from the Mediterranean through the Balkans and Turkey and into the Middle East to include Palestine, nor Mussolini's boast that Italy would fight a parallel war independent of Germany. I've done a couple of videos on Ian Kershaw's fateful choices, and I think you can see that this indeed was a fateful choice for Mussolini's Italy. And it would prove a fateful choice for Hitler too, though not a choice he himself made in this case. I hope you found that useful, and as always, I thank you for listening. Cheers.